Well, there we go. We'll just see. Um, if nothing else, we are live on video. And then let me pull up our system here. What I don't understand is why we're not playing music in the background here at the old studio. Sometimes people get a little uh, happy
Yeah,
with
let's
our.
just bring a message of health and wellness to.
You need some gloves, buddy?
Bring a message of health and wellness to Greenfield. That's our
See, it's
song
coming out of
right
the
there. They
headsets,
played
but
that
there's
at
nothing.
Success School.
There's nothing coming out of my speakers up here, which makes me think we've touched something. Deborah, if you're watching, but I can hear right here, and we can hear in the speaker, right? We don't want to hear that in the speaker is the thing. So let's just turn that down. Okay, I need to test your guys' mics. Break, 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 break. Um, can you hear?
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Can you hear?
Talking.
Yeah, I was hearing
Okay.
a minute ago. Test.
Break, break. I'm not getting much out of this mic. And there's a background sound that I can't understand. There it goes. There, it's gone away. Break, break. We're coming out of there, but we're not coming out of the headset. Try that, Bruce. It's my first time here in the studio there, Jeff. All right, can I get a test on yours, TJ? Okay. Do you like that mic all right, or do you want to go over there? You okay there? All right. All right, break, break, break. Let's, we're going to do here is we're going to exit out of this and go into my audio cuts database. Any specific song you guys would like for your intros and outros? Anything pumped up? You want some Arnold Schwarzenegger or something? Champion, what's it called?
Katy Perry. I was hiding. You're gonna hear me roar. Annie could tell me in a heartbeat, but she had to tell me. I asked her what that song. I was like, "What's this?" I was singing it. She goes, "Dude, wow, that's Katy Perry." Katy Perry roar.
I got two ways to do this. See, I can actually pipe this in. Or if I can find it on here.
Straight out. And now Success School.
You're going to break our table?
Exactly how my booty
You know, there was a serious thought process when we put the studio together in regards to the chairs. Can't you tell? This is an old drafting table, though. It actually lifts up. I got that off Craigslist. It's pretty cool. All right, let's see if we can find your artist here. Katy Perry. Your mics are not on, so let's see. Try that one, TJ. Oh, that sounds great. And it looks like you're on the red one, which is probably this one. Go ahead.
Test.
You got to get it there.
Test.
Yeah, it's.
Testing.
I think that one. You want to use that one? That'll probably work. Just make sure that cable doesn't twist too much.
Testing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, whatever you do, I would do that.
Boom, boom.
Do that.
Oh. Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
Wow. All right. Well, we just won't talk about it. I don't know what happened. We have a lot of training going on here at the new studio with some new DJs and some good people. The lady doing the morning show is fantastic. That's who you heard earlier, and that's only going to get better. So let me check you out. See if we got the same levels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Katie.
Okay.
That's probably not recommended for this. Bathroom only.
Come on, I want to hear you sing. All right, let's see if we can find Katy Perry on here somewhere. Seems like we could. Oh, it's still searching. Yeah, yeah. It's really cool how it works too. We have several other locations that come from here. So like Muncie has its own tower. Marion has a tower that we feed to there. So we pipe everything via internet from here to Carthage's tower. Okay, and that's what gets the 88.1. And then from the other ones, their computer systems out there are boxed. They're actually little gray boxes. We had one in here about this big, just a little. Picks it up and broadcasts it through that antenna. Really cool.
Get Josh on the line, have him call in so we can set up his
He'll be here this afternoon. All right, we're searching for an artist and we're not finding her. How do you not find Katy Perry? Did I spell it wrong?
P-A-T-Y.
How about we try Perry? Maybe Tyler Perry will pop up. All right, Katy Perry. What was that called? Roar? Oath. It play right there. It is. Let's listen. If it's too loud, okay. Is that too loud for you?
That's, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's hard for me to adjust the levels on that.
Crank it. We gotta wake Jeff up.
That's good. That's loud enough for me. Let's get
Try
to
your-
the roar part.
Try your mic one more time.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
Go ahead.
Test 1 2.
Let's get us a
Test 1 2.
little bit louder.
Test 1
Break,
2.
break.
Test test.
Break, break, break. Break, break. Okay, there. Are we coming out of the speakers everywhere? Let's hear yours.
Yeah, test.
Testing 1 2.
Okay, let's get you just a little closer.
Okay, a little closer.
Yeah, how's that?
Testing 1 2.
You warming up over there?
A little bit.
All right, as long as we're recording, then 6972 is what we need. That's what you want for the outro?
Sure.
All right. Okay, so
go with the where it says "I am a champion" on
um,
the song. It was good.
do you know what part that is?
You have to click play.
Is that me blowing up?
Or I could sing.
Breathe politely. I guess that I forgot I had a choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing.
It's funny on the show on the way over here. I'm listening to the lady who's talking to a guy about eliminating some people from your journey. Everybody will be on your journey, but
I'm on a journey.
not everybody will go forward. I was like, whoa.
All right, so listen, when we hear the music kick in, we're probably going to have to try to talk over it because I can't.
There it is.
So what is that, about 47?
Yeah.
There.
Right there. 54.
I'm a
Actually.
champion.
Seems like our mics are awful low today.
They say if you hang out with champions, you might become a champion. So I just try to throw my hat in that ring. Hey, what are you gonna do?
Wait a minute, I think we found it. You guys good to about 10:30? If it takes
Yeah.
that long? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it right.
Yeah. It sounded like 53. Like right around 53 is when it came on "I am a champion."
I'll just try to plug in some parts that TJ, I'm sure, will have
plenty to say.
You got it.
I see it now.
I'll just try to fill in.
Hope and health.
I'll bring in the hope.
What?
I'll bring in the hope. Look at this guy across the table.
And who looks quite dapper.
All right. Apparently. Okay. All right, so we want to take that up to
54.
Not only that, but he parks the truck outside with the license plate that says "It's cool,"
Out there or in here?
just to rub it in. Yeah.
right around there. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll have that one set. Oh no, I'll have to bring that back up. You know why? Oops. I have to go to my intro. You guys might like this. You might not like it. I need to get a new intro. Let's see. But I'll come back to that. What was it? 69.72. So come on, Pokey Joe. And remember, we can always pause on this anytime we want. So that's the beautiful part of
Spark.
Hey,
That's right, man.
Spark
Representing.
start my day off right.
Spark plug.
Let's go here, and then we'll test the actual recording, and then we'll get going.
This could be your calling. You look good.
Hey, man,
You got the coat?
I majored in broadcasting in college.
Did you really?
Yes, sir.
You did?
Look at
Broadcasting
you.
production technology.
Why does that not surprise me?
I thought the sports reporter thing was going to be my ticket until I found out what it paid. And then you had to hang out with a bunch of jocks in the lower leagues to get to the big leagues, and yeah, so
Aha, there
I
you
opted
are.
for when my farm job was paying more than my broadcasting job. I was like,
You had a different.
looks like sales is going to be the ticket.
Yeah, you had a clue then, right?
Yeah, I was like, the job offer you're making me, I'm making more milking cows out here on the farm. Well, you get good experience, you can make your way to Cincinnati. I'm like, okay, well.
I'm trying to make sure I could see you. What? Hey, there's life after retirement right there, man.
Yeah, hey, man, I'm telling you, I'm like I said.
I got it in at the radio station.
Hang around with these champions. I know people. I'm a connector.
You're a connector, an introducer, and a producer.
Now I got to
All
translate.
I think we actually could use two screens here. You know
Yeah.
what?
One for like all your tech.
Yeah, so we could have like the recording on one and then have the other on the other. So here's where we need to test our levels. Right here, just to make sure. Oh yeah, we've got great levels. Matter of fact, that may be a little too good. Let me turn mine down. We kind of want it right about there. Okay, so we'll let you go next, TJ.
All right. Test. Right about where you want it, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good, I think. I'm pretty sure that was you, so we'll turn that one off and that one off.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and get you.
Filling in for Bruce Ford today on Radio Mom is Jeff Bias.
Oh,
Bringing
see if you can get a little closer to that.
Bringing the word from Avocare.
Try that again.
Friend TJ.
See how our levels are?
Yeah.
Let me make sure.
I've never been told to get louder.
Let's see if we can give you a little gain here, or pain.
Put a little bass
Try that.
line.
Yeah, I think. All right. It's
Here we
kind.
are today on
Yep.
the radio show with
All right.
Bruce Ford.
All right, let's stop this one, and so I'm going to get us rolling, and then you guys. Again, what I want to do is make the introduction. I think I've got that. Fitnessneighbor@gmail.com, huh?
Yeah.
And whose is that?
That actually goes to me, which will get forwarded over to Jeff.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then Avocare. Does Avocare have just a regular generic website?
We do.
Can they find you, or do they have to have a certain number?
Yeah. Probably the easiest way to do it would be. What do you think, Jeff? Because you have your distributor
Yeah,
ID,
you
right?
Put my distributor number up there.
Might be.
Yeah. Why don't you do that? This is.
Why don't you do this? Put my site. We'll put if they click anything, click contact info, so they send a contact, and in the contact field we'll have them put radio now.
Okay.
So just put believeintoday.com.
Radio
Right down
Mom.
Radio Mom.
Radio.
But put believeintoday.com.
Believe in today.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like they might change the date of the Super Bowl, folks.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it must be due to weather or something. It's in New York, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's too cold.
Man, I wish we could get a couple more Super Bowls. Did you have the opportunity to go when it was here?
No.
Down there? Oh.
My wife went down there with the kids and had a blast.
Yeah. It was
What, buddy?
Cool.
BelieveInToday.com.
Yep. And then what we'll do is if I'll say it on there, but any contact information, just put contact us and then reference Radio Mom in there. And then we'll put them in touch with Jeffrey Bias, stand-in radio host
Jeffrey Bias.
for 88.1.
So we'll have those speakers on like that. I think we'll be good without any feedback. All right, you want to shut that door too? I'm sorry. See what happens when you sit close to the board and the door? The next time you come in, he'll be over here. You want to bet?
Yeah. Jeff, wave. Say hi to everybody.
No, I'll be right there.
hey, that's right. We need a sports update. Well, we've got some guys that want to do a sports show. I'm just trying to fill it out and see how it works.
Me and Hunter wrote sports for New Powell High School. He's handled that area. That's
All
what
right.
he needs. He needs a radio
Let's get this
spot.
party started, man. Ready?
Sounds good.
Uh-oh.
The Federal Reserve has cut its key interest rate to the lowest level on record.
Sorry, guys. I got to restart that.
Crisis will happen.
I didn't have it turned up. Welcome to Radio 101. My name is Bruce. I'll be your host all day. Take 6. Did I ever tell you about the time I had my son or my daughter in here and she reached down and accidentally turned off the power strip after I got halfway through the show? Okay, 3, 2, 1.
You know, over the last few days, we have seen clearly what's at stake in this election.
The Federal Reserve has cut its key interest rate to the lowest level on record. The federal funds rate, interest that banks
Crisis will happen.
The biggest fiscal stimulus we have ever seen.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 91 points today.
$300 a share.
Santa Claus arrives early on Wall Street.
Wall Street. We're going down the drain, okay? The stock is plummeting. When it hits 18, buy it all. Something big is going down. I want you to fill out the missing picture.
We were trained to be like client kamikazes. We had to kill for the client.
It's clearly a culture that cultivates ruthlessness.
The global economy is on the edge of a precipice.
Mayhem on the markets. Fears of contagion in the Eurozone send stocks tumbling.
The Dow fell as much as 705 points as traders watched in disbelief.
Anxiety over the Greek debt.
The banks created the financial crisis. It'll last for years, and we're all paying the price.
As a country, we're at least 5% poorer. And that is a consequence of the banking crisis.
Good morning, good morning. Can you hear the noise? Can you hear the frustration? Can you hear the confusion? Well, I know I can. Welcome to the Safe Money Radio Show on Radio Mom. I'm Bruce Ford. I'm your host, and I'm here with you every single Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We follow the Fourth Quarter Advisor Show, which comes on at 4 o'clock, and then we get straight into financial literacy in regards to safe money aspects, things that we can talk about to enhance your financial literacy and to help you become a little more successful. Thank you for joining us in the new year here on Radio Mom from the Highsmith Gun Studios. To find me, by the way, all you have to do is go to your smartphone, guys. Today, everything's smartphone, right?
Yeah.
FordFinancialInsurance.com. That's FordFinancialInsurance.com. And by all means, reach out to me at any time. 317-318-8355. 318-8355. Well, if you're just tuning in and you did not catch last week's show or any of the promo this week, I have been joined by a couple very successful entrepreneurs, in my opinion. Very successful men of faith, in my opinion. And today we're going to talk about a couple things in regards to small business, starting a small business, the struggles of a small business, some of the opportunities out there. But we're also going to get into these fellas have a business called Advocare, and I know you've heard of it. I've seen it everywhere. I've actually got some spark if you're watching us online right now at Ustream.tv, Radio Mom. Got some spark. It's an all-natural. You have to talk a little bit more about that, but it gives me great natural energy in the morning and keeps me from crashing. I really enjoy that. So let's get right to it, guys. Let's talk about Advocare. I want to introduce to you Jeff Bias and TJ. Is it pronounced Howski?
Howski.
Ha! I got it right on the first try. Did you see that? It must have been all the voicemails back and forth. Howski. Interesting. And Jeff Bias is a friend of mine. I've known him for quite some time. It's kind of interesting. I think I told you this, TJ, but his daughter actually babysits for us from time to time, and I met them through our church. And
it's awesome.
All these years later, here we are, still friends and acquaintances. And Jeff's a client of mine too, which I need to disclose. He's an okay client. Anyhow, these two guys are in here, and we're going to talk about Advocare. We're going to talk about the history of Advocare, if that's okay with you guys. I want to talk about the history, where it's come from, where it's going, and then what I want to get into after that directly would probably be your personal stories in regards to the business side of Advocare. You know, we could talk about the what Advocare does, the products involved, the history there, but we can also talk about the business side in regards to your own personal small business.
Sure.
Okay. And we'll get into that. We've probably got, I don't know, we could have a good 15-minute conversation, then I'll have to take a break. And then when we come back, what I want to talk about is the vision. And I want to talk about where Advocare is going from here. Okay? And then in the final segment, folks, stick around. Don't go anywhere, because this is the most important segment, which is how can you create your own small business? How can you do something on the side, maybe to generate some income while you're still working? Or perhaps you're in transition and you're looking for a great opportunity. Well, we're going to discuss that. So let's do this first. Let's talk about Advocare, TJ, and I'll let you just kind of take the wheel on that. And sure. Jeff and I, throughout this show, I'm a non-scripted guy, so we're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah,
okay?
That's how I work.
Back and forth, and I'll ask you some questions, and hopefully you don't fall out of your chair.
Yeah, no.
Got you with something unexpected. So why don't we do that first? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having us on here. Really appreciate it. And that's what makes this Advocare awesome. Honestly, is I met Jeff as a random stranger. Almost a year ago now. Shred It, actually. Yeah, nice plug for Shred It. I was out personally just taking in our normal documentation that you want to destroy and protect, and that kind of stuff. And I was wearing an Advocare jacket, and Jeff started a nice conversation, and that's really what Advocare is just an opportunity to connect with people. And so we started a nice conversation, became new friends. Like when Advocare was introduced to me, I just got started on products through a random stranger that just said it made a difference in his life. Yeah. And Jeff was excited about that. He got going, so very excited. So yeah, Advocare in general, I think that's where we want to start, right? Just kind of the history.
Let's do the history.
So we've been around 21 years. We're celebrating our 21st year now. We're based in Dallas, Texas. Direct marketing by nature, so we were designed that way. And our focus is really health and wellness. We've shared this message at the four corners of the nation on the internet, in large opportunity meetings, and really that's just to clarify that, we're a health and wellness company, so we help with, whether it's sports performance or weight loss, wellness, just in general, how you feel, energy levels, things like that.
One of the things I noticed that there's a concentration on, and Jeff used a great analogy with me one time in regards to your body's like Swiss cheese, and we're all different. We metabolize different. We have different diet intakes on a daily basis. I know here recently I've completely switched my diet, which this might blow your mind because I do all the cooking at my house.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I grew up in a Southern Fried Chicken kitchen. And now all of a sudden you're over at my house eating nuts and berries and spinach. And I've had maybe chicken twice in the last month. I really just wanted to change.
Yeah.
I'm 40 years old. I've got high cholesterol. I had high cholesterol. It's gone. Imagine that. Well, if you're not dumping cholesterol down your throat, you're probably going to be all right, right? So, but I'm thinking, long term with 4 kids, and so I've completely changed the diet in my life. And Jeff used the analogy Swiss cheese because we all have holes. We've got holes. Maybe it's maybe you're missing potassium. Maybe your particular body's missing calcium. Whatever it is. And you got to kind of find a comfortable balance and plug those holes in order, because I believe spirituality, I believe in being physically fit, and then I believe in the mental ability that you have to have in the clarity. If those 3 things aren't in balance, your whole body's out of balance. Just one thing can tip the scale for the other 2. So anyhow, go on with the health and wealth thing.
Yeah, no, you really hit it on the head. I kind of summarize AdvoCare as like the Nike of nutrition. Really it's, the human body's a lot like an automobile, and it's about putting the right fuel in it. And just like you said, you were ready for a life change, and, it started with making better food decisions,
Absolutely.
right? And, the key focus of supplement nutrition is to supplement those gaps, just to fill the void that, you don't get from food nowadays. Or maybe, we all live busy lifestyles. I have 4 kids, you have 4 kids. So we're robbing Peter to pay Paul and chasing them with time. And supplement nutrition is just a great way to get that extra
Is that
gap
the
in.
way AdvoCare started? And who's the founder, by the way?
Charlie Regis is
Okay,
our
did
founder.
you wake up one day and go, we're a bunch of malnutritioned, overweight people that need some health? Or what motivated him to start this product?
Yeah, really. Just at his very core, Charlie's always been a difference maker, and so he had been in health and wellness for years before, he'd met retirement, but just saw a need still in the marketplace, even after doing it for all those years, that, people were looking for better health, and that they could create a company that would design products focused solely on that, just a solutions-based company. And, he was a former athlete, played in college, played in professional football. And so for him, it always been a lifestyle for him, just that health and wellness in general.
Was he a college football player?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, college, and then made it to pro. And embarrassed to say, I don't know the official pro team he played for. I want to say the Redskins, but don't know. Yeah, yeah. Be honest. Be honest. Didn't pay attention to Charlie's pro career. Not that wasn't valuable, but I paid a lot to attention to Charlie's professional career in AdvoCare. So.
Yeah. And so, how many years ago was that? 20?
Oh, geez, started 21 years ago, 1993. Just like any small business, a business with a box and, I'm sure like the copier machine duct taped together. And
so I'm assuming that the product has evolved over time, but there must have been a core product. And then I'm thinking that, the first thing you do when you start a small business is hey, Jeff, man, I just started my new business. I was wondering if you could come by. We've been friends for a long time. If you could just check me out or something like that. So I'm assuming that's kind of how his circle started, right?
Yeah, we're actually, like anything, we're a business of stories, right? And so one of the greatest stories I've ever heard is when Charlie introduced AdvoCare to his very dear friend Norma Gillespie, and she's still today active as the first distributor in the world of AdvoCare.
Really?
And so Charlie brought Spark, which back then did not taste good, but it's always worked. And the number one product in AdvoCare has been Spark, and then our vitamin strip pack called Metabolic Nutrition System. And he shared a story with Norma about what he wanted to do with AdvoCare, not just the products, but the vision of the company making a difference, in people's lives. And Norma said, "That's great, Charlie. How many people are on product?" And he goes, "Well, if you take it, it'll be 2." and that's where AdvoCare started, right then and there.
Spread it from there.
And that was it. Just who you knew, and really bringing the message from the heart, not the head. Of I really do know that. We have over 80 products now in AdvoCare, and that message in 21 years is what I believe has made us so strong, and that it's never changed. We're a people-to-people business about sharing a message of hope and health, and we just keep it consistent.
I was introduced to AdvoCare, a couple years ago. I was at a Brownsburg Chamber event that they had at one of the gymnasiums over there, I think. But it was basically small business owners had booths set up, and here comes Andy Hosier. Hey, what are you here for? I said, hey, what are you here for? You had this big tall thing with AdvoCare, and he's like, you need some of this. You need some of this. Try this out, And then he's a pretty laid back guy. And so I said, all right, so tell me all about it. And then I realized he was his own small business owner. I realized what he was doing, and we actually had a meeting later on because, as you know, I'm in the financial world, and I wanted to give him some tips in regards to, because his business was going to become successful, and kind of talk about that. Because you can start a business and become successful, but the question is, can you hang on the money and do the right things? A lot of your professional athletes, a lot of your lottery winners are broke, and it's all because of financial literacy. And so one of the things that I like about Advocare, and then we'll move on, is the education part. Being educated, because it's easy to sell a product to anybody, and today we'll just say weight loss. Hey, check this out, you'll lose 30 pounds. People are all giddy. They want to get up and take this and expect it all just to fall off, but they don't change their eating habits. They may not change their physical exercise habits. They're just looking for a powerful drug. One of the things that I noticed was that if everything about the packages and online has to do with nutrition. It's not one specific, hey, just take this Spark. It's a multifaceted, that cheese thing, trying to fill the holes with supplements, and then what is this really? What are you putting in your body? Versus here's some magic pill that's going to make you lose weight. What's in the pills? Right? I like that education part. So let's get you involved here, Jeff. So to finish my story with Andy Hosier, though, after we connected and went through that, he's kind of, he's kind of excelled and done really well. And
Yes.
I'd like to reconnect with him. I really enjoyed talking to him.
I
So
put
I
you in
think we'll
touch.
do that. But how about talking, so we got the history down, right? With Advocare, but how about talking, maybe we'll do this. Let's talk about you first. Let's talk about your background, where you came from before you got in the business.
Sure.
Then we'll get into Jeff. We'll talk about your background and what's going on before you got in the business. And then we'll take a break.
Sure.
Come back and we'll talk about your personal Advocare stories. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I've always had an athletic background. So for me, supplements in general weren't anything that were a foreign concept to me. Whether it was your traditional distributors like your GNCs and, street corner style stores. So when Advocare was introduced to me, I understood about the nutrition side of it. At the time, my background's corporate America. Spent my background's business development and technology. Did about 15 years in that space. The last 3.5 I did in the healthcare space, which was really just building networks and building systems that allowed, in my space was a little different, but it was leveraging the gap between technology and efficiency to generate profit.
Was it a hospital? Or a big
It was,
company?
very specialty care center, orthopedic health group.
Okay.
And it was great, enjoyed the opportunity to work in corporate America. But what I found for me and what Advocare offered was an opportunity to realign my priorities, put my family first.
I got that.
And that's what it came down to. Is just, you're always doing one of two things, building your dream or building somebody else's. And I just saw an opportunity in Advocare that said, hey, I can, I'm willing to work hard, but why not work hard for something that I can do for my family and that my family could inherit?
Sure. One of my number one reasons for becoming self-employed was I worked for the man. I like to call it the man, that corporate machine that you're only as good as yesterday's numbers. And I gave them a big chunk of my young life, and we were grinding, and it didn't matter how successful you were for the last 5 years. They could have you replaced in 2 weeks if they felt like it. And, the other piece of the corporate, what I like to call the false sense of security is that they do crazy things like ethnic and gender reports and things like that, and they force positions for certain people that may not qualify for the position just because they need to fill that somehow equality. And I was brought up, and to the day I die, I'll keep this with me. You get what you deserve by performance, not by seniority, but by performance. Now, I'm not talking about last year's performance or 5 years yesterday's performance, but where have you been the last 10 years? What have you done? You follow me? You climb the ladder because you've done the right things and you deserve the position. And I woke up one day and realized that false sense of security, and this was a high paying job. It was 6 figures for 4.5 years of that career, and I was in my mid to late 20s. It was good money, right? But sleeping at night, and I had my first daughter, and I realized how much time I was going to be able to spend with her. And that flies by so quick. So, okay, so on to you, Jeff. Let's talk a little bit about your background, where you're coming from and where you're at now.
Yeah, I come from the sales industry most of my life. One of the reasons that I looked at Advocare was I in a period of about 15 years with 2 companies, I was downsized twice.
Really?
So I realized right away the need to kind of always have a plan B. What ultimately led me to Advocare was just some health related issues, so that's what ultimately led me there.
Which means you were looking for the product first.
I was looking for the product first. I was introduced by TJ to Spark, just totally lifted me off the couch, got me going again. And we have a little word between us called Hope. And we've been sharing that story for almost a year now. And trust me, it gave me hope. You know, I'm in the early 50s. And, you know, when you start feeling unhealthy and not, you know, desire to really get out there and in a sales career, you got to be on every day. Yeah. And so when this product lifted me up off the couch, I thought, hey, I want to spread this message. And, you know, like I said, I've always looked for a plan B. And that's kind of what generated. You know,
First time I tried the Spark, by the way, I went home and cleaned the entire house. My wife's like, "What do you want?"
Actually, I sparked a gal in my office the other day, and she mentioned that her house is cleaner than it's ever been. But back to your original time when you met Andy Hosier. I've got the note here in my wallet. I pulled out. I'm driving down the road, and you called me, and you said, "Hey, Jeff, you need to speak to this guy." This was probably 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And lucky for me that eventually that message walked through the door in TJ Houski.
Well, why don't we save that conversation for the next segment? We're going to talk about your personal Avocare stories. How about that? And apparently somebody likes this song, so let's see if we get this song rolling right here. Take us out into the break, right? I don't know. I've got a daughter who's almost 13, and she's into this kind of music and stuff. And I'm thinking, man, I'm 40. I'm not that old, but the music has changed so much, right? Hey, you're listening to the Safe Money Radio Show on Radio Mom. I'm Bruce Ford, joined in the studio today by Jeff Bias and TJ Houski of Avocare. Do not go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to tell you about their personal journey, the journey to success, what Avocare has done for them personally. You're not going to want to miss it. Safe Money Radio Show from the Highsmith Guns Radio Mom studio. We'll be right back. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I wish I could adjust that volume. That's all right. So I got it stopped. What I'll do quickly is fade that out so I don't have to go back and edit it. But I want to save us, because we certainly would not want some kid to come in here
and unplug
it. And I think because we switched computers, I'm going to have to put a new...
Just some notes I made on the business side of things. Forbes magazine says $212 a month change average family's situation.
That's crazy, huh?
$212. So that's something I think could be. And then, of course, you know, the $6 billion energy industry though that's just powerful to me, especially if you're going to be in a business, you want to be in the market, the market. And then, of course, and then Bruce even has a story from one of his customers who was rated on his policy. And then,
yeah, I need to bring that up. Yeah, I definitely need to bring that up.
Then,
it's kind of interesting.
The 24-day challenge came back, and he wasn't rated, and it obviously ended up reducing his premium.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Significantly.
That's as good as it gets, right?
That's it. I mean, that's the life change.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much we can actually, you know, I can dial it. I don't want to, you know, this is going to save your life, change your cholesterol type thing. But at the same time, there's value there. So you tell me how you want to handle that.
I think just measurable results, you know, and we have had them for 21 years, and we can focus there.
Okay.
Facts.
We'll fade that out. And
you warming up over there, Jeffrey?
A little bit.
If you want, you can open that door, run down there, check. Actually, I kind of like to get the webcam and watch you do that. You know, it's so funny. One time I was at the Carb Day, and I had been running for a while. And I told these guys, there's a video. Josh made a video YouTube of it. I told him, I said, I can run a 6.5 minute mile. I can leave right now and take off running, and I'll can do it. Who wants to do it with me? I was challenging them at Carb Day, and they wouldn't do it. Oh, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that. Well, then I took off, and he said, I had to take you 90 seconds to get from there to there, 60, whatever it was, and it was like, it took me like 45 seconds or something. I think if you're a runner, you can run a very fast mile. Once you get up to your running 5-7 miles, you could run a fast mile if you just took off and did it.
Yeah.
A lot faster than what you think. But anyway, he had to buy me a beer for that. For losing that bet. All right, so I'm gonna put in some silence here so that I can go back and put my commercials in. Okay, and so we probably need, that's just 2 minutes, so that'll be fine. So what that does here, fellas, is that puts us at, let's see, we had basically 19 minutes there. This is 23, so that's too much time. Give it about 2 minutes. So we'll start right here. This time we'll go about 17, 18 minutes. So I'll bring us back. I'll reconnect with the audience on what's going on with you guys, who you are, and then we'll get into the personal side, your Avocare story, which you should probably pick up first since you left.
Okay. Yeah.
With that, okay, and then make sure you get in whatever you want to get in regards to that kind of stuff, because the final segment we're going to tie this into the financial aspect. Small business owner, how to create this thing, where to start.
Yeah.
You know, so if there's some good tools on the website. I know that you and I talked about a financial thing. You know, just stuff like that, because this is a financial literacy show, so I want to make sure that the people, all three of them listening, get something from it. So, all right, let's see. I'm going to bring in some other music here, and let's see what we got here. Remind me, we'll bring in this Warren Buffett debt on the end. Let's do this one. What's this?
It's hard to predict.
All right, I like that one. It's old, but I like it. Pipe down, Jeff.
I'm ready, man.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
It's hard to predict. The stock market is falling. It's the speculators' fault that gas prices are rising. Well, it's hard to understand where to put your money. With everything that's going on, it ain't funny. Learn to speak Chinese.
Hey, welcome back to the Safe Money Radio Show on Radio Mom. I am your host, Bruce Ford, and I am here with you each and every week at 10 a.m. The Safe Money Radio Show is brought to you by Ford Financial and Insurance Services out of Greenfield, Indiana. And our goal is financial literacy. Did you like how I just cut the music off, guys? Boom. That was, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out this new technology we've got here at the Highsmith Gun Studio. So you're joining us today. And again, you can find me and all of the information about me, which I hope is all good, at FordFinancialInsurance.com. That's FordFinancialInsurance.com. And reach out at any time. Questions, comments, concerns, show ideas, things that you may want to have us discuss on the Safe Money Radio Show in regards to financial literacy. 317-318-8355. 317-318-8355 is the number. So we're going to continue our conversation now with a couple professionals that I'm working with, and they're specializing in Avocare. And what I'd like to do next, I've got Jeff Bias in here and TJ Howski. I would like for you guys to tell your personal stories in regards to Avocare itself, and your walk, I guess, on the little bit more about how you were exposed and kind of where you're at with the business side, Jeff, and then we'll turn it over to you at the same at the end of that. Okay.
Thanks, Bruce. My personal story began by being introduced to product. Got introduced to some products, had just amazing immediate results on the spark with the energy. And, you know, most Americans, it's a $6 billion industry. Most Americans are looking for energy these days.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the thing about that is they're drinking garbage to get it.
That's true.
True.
Too,
you know. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so that was the first thing that I was introduced to. And another thing I recognize, I was told about more products that they had. Diet. Nobody wants to hear diet. That's a pain right there. And I was introduced to a lifestyle. And one of the things I remember speaking to you about is that I didn't want to get into anything that was just supplements. I needed something that was going to give me a path, give me a direction. And that's one of the things about the 24-day challenge. So I got introduced to product. That excited me. Then I thought I want to take this a little step further to go to the lifestyle. So I went through a 24-day challenge, which is supplements.
Which
and
I did that too, by the
and
way.
Food. Yes, sir. I introduced you to that. And then, so it's a lifestyle. It's food and supplements to help you, just regain your body. There's a 10-day cleanse phase, and then there's a 14-day max phase, which the cleanse phase is just changing your oil in your body, and then the 14-day max phase is just putting more good nutrients in your body and keeping that, sustaining that momentum that you're gaining. In that process, I lost 17 pounds.
Wow.
And
You did.
it was like, really, yeah, I lost 17 pounds, about 3-4 notches on my belt. So definitely has my attention at this point, and albeit didn't work out one day.
Really?
I was suffering from a little bit of pain. So I'm trying to get my body back to where I feel like working out. So have continued that journey, lost about another 15 pounds, so I'm down, a little over 30 pounds. This is in about 8 months for me, with some challenges of the holidays and things coming up. But anyway, I've been able to maintain it, and that's one of the amazing things through this journey, seeing all the stories of how these products have helped people, friends and relationships that I've developed with people, just tremendous stories. So if you plug into something and see really the whole true story of AvoCare, the results are amazing.
So what I hear you saying is that because of that, you took it to the next level. You decided to get a little more involved on the business side, because it's a two-sided thing. I mean, you can take this, which is what I do, and enjoy it and change your lifestyle, whatever. But you can also get into the business side. So tell me a little bit about that. How is that provided for you? Where are you going with it?
That was the next step. I had mentioned to you that in 15 years I'd been downsized a couple of times. Always kind of kept my eye on a plan B. Getting a little bit, got some changes going on in my life, kids going to college and things like that, so an extra way to generate some income. So for me, in being in sales, what market, you want to be in the market, that's stuff that's the most marketable that everybody's using.
Right.
Energy's a $6 billion industry, coffee, Monsters, Red Bulls, all that kind of stuff. And then Indiana's the 4th most obese state in Indiana.
I saw that report, and when you look at children too, by the way, guys, it's even higher. I mean, it's amazing to me. But go ahead.
And then on the income side of things, when people think income and they think direct sales, they think, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. Forbes magazine says $212 will change a family's life in a month on a monthly basis. $212.
Well,
I'm embarrassed by that.
Well, no, you know what?
In
In my financial world, the people that I sit down with, regardless of age, I do a lot of the financial literacy stuff. I have never sold anything to anybody without going through their entire budget. Period. I refuse to.
That's awesome.
Because I just think that if you don't know the whole situation with these folks, first of all, how do you make the right recommendations? And second of all, there are things I can do to help them when we go through that. There's 3 things I wish for this world. One was that we as Christians could be, how can I say this, outspoken about our faith without being criticized, just like any other faith. It's almost faux pas today to say that you're a Christian, you're almost attacked, whereas if you're agnostic or something else, that's really cool, and it's okay to talk about that. We've taken it out of everything. The other thing is the financial literacy aspect. I just think that we're financially illiterate. We run around with all this debt, TJ. We've got situations like you're talking about, Jeff, where $212 a month or whatever can make a big difference. When I look at these budgets, absolutely correct, because we're spending more. We live in a society where debt is just acceptable. We're spending more than we have, and all we're doing is running up debt. Where our government does it. It's a culture. We've taught it from the government down, and so how can we expect our children to adhere to that? I use this example where I go to the gas station, and I gave, it was a fast food restaurant. I won't say which one. And I'm standing there, and it was $9.25, and I give the gal $20, and she hit a Mount Tendered as $9.25, and could not count back to me $10.75. Went and held the line, brother. People are standing behind me in line. I'm just, hey, you know what? It's $10.75. But she thought I was crazy, and couldn't count the quarters back and the 10. So my point in saying that is a very common thing today, and financial literacy is something that we're just completely missing the boat on. The third thing I was going to say about that is that if we can eliminate debt, if we could get the debt out of our life, And if we could just teach people math, I'm convinced that if you knew math, in and out, numbers-wise math, that we could end poverty in the United States. There's so much opportunity. We kill the opportunity with debt, yet we're not exposed to opportunity because of the lack of knowledge when it's simple math, right? So think about how that holds people back. But, moving forward, TJ, why don't you talk about your situation and kind of, you gave a history in the first segment in regards to your past life. Let's talk about what this has done for you on the business side.
Yeah, sure. For me, we're very grateful. We were blessed. My wife and I both have very successful corporate careers, solid 6-figure incomes. But with it came 6-figure time debt, and there's always a trade-off. And I think that, you can go through a journey in life where, from just being a peewee all the way up, that people, they kind of place a sticky note on you, like tell you what you're going to do. Like, you could do this or you could do that. And next thing you know, you've kind of been given direction your entire life until you get to a stage in your life where you reach that point of reflection. And I think that comes differently to everybody at different times in their life.
I agree with that.
And it just so happened for me that it came at a time about 3 months into AdvoCare, and so for our journey, it also started on products. It was a stranger that shared AdvoCare with me. We got started on products. I too started on the 24-day challenge. So did my wife, with very different goals. And that's what's great about the lifestyle. My wife lost 3 dress sizes, went from a 10 to a 2, lost 18 pounds of body fat. I put on 21 pounds of muscle. Yeah, she's
congratulations.
Yeah. So, but beware, she 3 dress sizes. I put on 21 pounds. We made a baby. So you gotta be careful of that too.
Right.
And so no, equally blessed. Continued on products, and that forever changed. But 3 months in, we really had that moment where that stranger has become one of my very best friends, including Andy Hosier has become one of my very best friends. And they asked me a challenging question, which was, what does your next 5 years look like? Do you have a walk-away lifestyle right now? Are you going to be debt-free? Do you have a legacy to leave your children? And it wasn't a money conversation as much as it was, do you have a plan? Right? Do you have a plan? Right. And I think the reason why I was so angered by it was, quite honestly, I didn't really have a plan. I was living in the now, and while we were making great money and we were heading towards debt freedom, we weren't really that close.
Sure.
We were on what I call the traditional plan, like look up in 30 years and it'll be all done.
Right.
And so when we got started in AdvoCare truly as a business, and that's important to distinguish. Jeff Bias and I are independent distributors in the world of AdvoCare. We just said, hey, listen, you could. For some people, it can be an entrepreneurial endeavor, doing landscaping, but for us, we saw an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, sharing a message of, time freedom, debt freedom. And I really believe, like we were sharing yesterday, or the day before, there's only 2 types of people in this world. You pay interest or you make interest.
That's right.
And we just saw this could be a vehicle first and foremost for our family to pay off debt, to be debt free. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you make if you owe everybody.
Right.
And then once you have that freedom, you have choices, and that's what we wanted. And then what we saw in the business was that if we were there and we felt like, quite frankly, we were doing pretty good, what about the people that weren't doing so good? Or even more so, the people that were like us, that maybe nobody had challenged them with that question to say, what's your plan? Like, do you really have a plan? And so we just started finding that, we wanted to be those advocates for caring people that would stand in the gap for people to say, hey, listen, like if you want help, even if it's an extra $200 a month to just make a difference in your family, or maybe it's $500 a month to apply to your debt profile and just have a plan over the next 36 or 60 months to be debt free, including your mortgage, what better vehicle to do this in and make a difference in somebody's life at the same time physically.
Sure. Yeah. And, it's interesting because when I became self-employed, my major motivation there was what I saw going on in the fake corporate world was one thing, but my major motivation was my child. It was my very first child. She's almost 13 now. And I quit, by the way, on April Fool's Day. And if you knew me very well, you would know that nobody took it serious. But I needed to work the first day of the second quarter to qualify for the first quarter benefits, which I had earned. I've been there a long time. I mean, I missed one day in 8 years or whatever it was. And so I decided, though, that I wasn't going to watch. I almost had to miss her birthday party that was out of town because we happened to live in Illinois at the time. And I'm thinking, I'm not missing birthday parties. You can't get that back. I can find another job. I'm valuable, okay? I'm a good employee. I'm tentative. I'm loyal. I'm not putting up with that crap. And so I made my mind that within 6 months I'd be out of that company. And within 6 months I was out of that company. Now on April Fool's Day I was scared to death. I was so scared I went home, took a shot, and I don't drink that kind of stuff. I'm serious about that. I thought, for how do I, because I had the debt that went with the money I made. How do I move forward in my life and do something different. And like you guys, you tried the product first, Jeff. So you like the product, it's a good product, and you're like, I'm going to share this news with people. That's what I believe about the financial world. I'm pretty biased. I think Wall Street's a joke in a lot of cases. I think it's a big casino, and I'm not alone in that thought process. John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, said just that. Wall Street is become a casino where the only winners are the croupiers. Well, that's, the person that places the bets. So I find that if you believe in what you do, like you guys do, and you believe in, what you're drinking here and the vitamins you're putting in your body, then naturally you're going to share that message with other folks. It just so happens that you came in at a time where you could look at the business and say, hey, there's a business opportunity here. And along with what you said about financial freedom and those changes, I'd like to add to that. I have 4 kids. And within my job, and my clients understand, I have my son in my office sometimes. I set up my office so that it has a place for my son. He's almost 7 years old. He gets out of school at 2. They change the calendars here. I can do this. I can bring him from school to my office, have a meeting. I've never had a client say, why in the world is your son in your office? I love that. I just think the freedom and the flexibility, dance recitals, ball games, the things that your kids are involved in. How many kids do you have? 4. So you're like me. We got 4 kids. You've got 3, right, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
his are a little bit older than ours, but ours are still young enough they want to hang on to your leg and hang out with you all the time.
Mine are babysitting yours.
That's right. So I'm thinking about this, and looking back at hindsight, I was scared to death, and for the first couple years, I almost starved to death too. But looking back now, I never had to miss these things. Okay, I always had that, and I think my kids are going to grow up knowing that mom and dad were there. Mom and dad were involved. Mom and dad, that is the most important thing, because if you don't raise your kids and you're involved, someone else will. Someone else would raise your kids, and I don't want other people raising my kids.
Yeah.
Not in today's world. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
All right. So what about your business? I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, we got started in AdvoCare. This April will be 2 years, so spring 2 years ago.
And what point in time did you leave that corporate job?
Really, about 90 days in is when we really took a hard look at AdvoCare and said, I can put 80 to 100 hours a week in corporate America, or I could put full time into AdvoCare as a new entrepreneur. And we were blessed. We were in a circumstance in life where my wife had great employment in her career. And so we made decisions. I mean, that's really what this comes down to for anybody listening, is we made decisions in our life to intentionally downsize and offset some things that were a want, not a need.
Right.
And we put our family first, and we just said, hey, listen, we're going to build this thing, and in the process of that, we're going to find people that want that help. And so in about 6 months' time, really 90 days, we hit a level in AdvoCare just financially that gave us that breathing room as a new entrepreneur,
Sure.
where we went from top ramen to grilled chicken, and and
beans and rice, but I still eat beans and rice. Part of my new
and so we started to really see that the momentum of people that were following behind us.
So did you leave first then?
Mm-hmm.
You left
I
your
did.
guy
I
and
came
she
home first.
stayed? Okay.
Yeah, she came and supported, and it was a plan that we just laid out together, and really, our plan was pretty simple when we saw it. And that was, okay, if we could redesign our life, what would we do first? And I think that there's 2 types of people really when it comes to time debt. There's people that trade hours for dollars, right? And then there's people that trade time for memories. And I was the guy I was burning on both ends, that I was losing memories that I wasn't going to get back. And I think the moment that really, it was the catalyst for everything, was when my wife said, I have about 5 years left to 6 years left with my son, my oldest, before he's off into the world in college, and I want those years.
She was working full time too, then, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we were, I guess we kind of really looked at each other as we were building this business, and for anybody listening, I think that any business owner would tell you, including Charlie Regis, who founded AdvoCare, that your first 5 years, you're kind of looking at yourself going, I made the right decision, right? And for us,
Yeah.
we basically took a mindset that said, I can give my life energy to someone else, right, and build whatever their vision is for their employment agreement, or I could give my vision to this, which was something that we just drafted on a piece of paper and said, hey, listen, we're looking at people that are offering to help us. And I think that's what distinguishes any successful business, and that's what separates AdvoCare physically and financially, was that we had people like Andy Hosier and Larry Prater and that poured into us. That said,
So there
hey,
was a lot of support there.
Huge.
I think that's
huge.
big. I work with a lot of small business owners, TJ, and I have a retired Air Force gentleman who he had a vision of owning his own donut shop. So what he wanted to do is retire from the Air Force. His wife worked. They wanted to do this, but they were prohibited from doing it because they didn't have the injection they needed for an SBA loan, which was very interesting. We went through the process together, and I've gotten to know them. I mean, I consider them personal friends now, which happens in my business because I'm just pretty heavily involved. I would rather have a certain amount of clients with great relationships than be the McDonald's of financial products. I mean, that's, to me, it doesn't make sense. But anyhow, he wanted that dream. That was his dream. And you're talking about a guy who was in the corporate world too. After he was in the Air Force, but he's also in the corporate world. So was his wife. She was in the banking industry. And the first thing that happens is you get frightened. And the number one reason why we get frightened is debt. Debt. I mean, that's what keeps people up at night. That is it's just such a serious problem. I mean, and specifically in our country. So how did you personally, I'm just curious about that. How did you overcome that? Because I know for me, it was all about, you know what? I can make this amount of money on a yearly basis. And when my kids get into high school and start doing things, I can go back and start pounding the pavement a little harder. You know what I mean? And we went through the debt thing. We went through the Dave Ramsey and tried to reduce that. And so that really helped me and my wife has a job. She's a nurse at the hospital here and has been for a long time. But that transition was pretty tough. I had to downsize my house. I mean, it was a big deal. But now looking back, I'm going, great for it, right? What about you personally, that transition? What did you guys do different that made it so successful?
I think the first one was a lot like what you said, when you looked at your oldest, now 13, right? And that was a decision that we were able to say out loud that debt's not normal. And we were able to look and say that
be honest about it.
Yeah. We were able to, I tell people a lot when they're building their businesses in AvoCare that the first step of change is you, always, personal growth. And we were able to look in the mirror and go, okay, this isn't okay. Like what we're teaching our children is that this is a normal lifestyle, that student loans are normal, that credit card debt is normal, that
living in a home that you can't afford is normal.
Yeah. And so what we started to do is really focus on, prioritizing what do we want out of life and what are we willing to do to get it. And I think that's the biggest message I would share here today, physically or financially. It starts with you. You got to make a decision that, I'm not happy where I am and I'm willing to look in the mirror and go, I am the person that made the decisions to get me where I am. But what's freeing in that is you can equally be the person that says, I'm make the decisions to get me out of that.
Exactly. Just like anything, change cannot happen until you make that decision. So listen, here's what we got to do, guys. We got to take a short break. I apologize, Jeff. We want to get back to you here in a minute after the break. And then I want to talk about the financial aspects of the small business owner. I want to talk about the struggles, but I want to talk about the good stuff. And you want to stick with us, folks, because if you happen to be in this situation, I have a piece of information for you that will allow you to create a tax-free retirement structure. You're listening to the Safe Money Radio Show on Radio Mom. I'm Bruce Ford, and we'll be right back.
Here's a little note I took, and you both spoke to it during that. Often in life, your greatest potential lies in your greatest fear. You left, you ain't gonna work in corporate America anymore. It's kind of the same way with him, and you just said,
and that was the greatest fear. Yeah. It was a great fear.
Yeah, you were scared to death. You were getting shot.
And to this day, I tell that story because, and I only did one, by the way. I like a good craft beer myself. But I was so nervous. I'm like, man, is this going to work? Whatever. And honestly, it took another 6 weeks after that before things came to a head. And I was building fences in my neighborhood, brother. It was one of those neighborhoods out where the new houses had just filled up. And I built a fence, and then one of my neighbors said, "Hey, because I'm pretty handy like that. I like to do construction stuff." And so I built his fence, and then Josh was my neighbor at the same time, lived down the road. We were building fences in the neighborhood. I mean,
well, that's
who
the
does that?
Thing about faith. In my faith walk, it's just that gives me the strength.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's leading the way.
Yep.
And he's directing me.
It's also the hardest thing you'll ever do is put that trust out there.
It is.
It's amazing.
It's very comforting when you're a guy like me, because not a day goes by that he Yeah, I put that TJ Howsky there. I put that Bruce Ford there. Go get your finances in order, Jeff. Have TJ guide you through this little.
So here's what we'll do. We'll come back and I'll just recap quickly. I'm going to play a short debt clip from Warren Buffett just because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's explore the whole financial realm, how all of this comes together.
Yes.
I want to make sure that I teach a concept, and you can challenge me with any questions, but I want to teach this concept because one of the things you and I and some of the other folks that are self-employed opportunities that we have is to create our own retirement plan, because most people, you lose that when you leave the corporate world. You lose that false sense of security. You also lose those retirement plans, and we think, just like we did, some people don't think you can go start a business and make money. It's always too good to be true. You know, that's the thought process. But when it actually happens and you start making money, we think we got to throw it back at Wall Street. We think that we have to set up these IRAs and play the stock market with our money. And in all reality, because we are self-employed, there is another opportunity I want to tell you about that's ever so powerful. It's probably the least known financial instrument out there to create a tax-free retirement. But it's so also powerful.
I'm excited.
We'll talk about that, and then at the end, we kind of like to tie in all of your information so people know how to get a hold of you. Okay, sound like a good thing? All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'll play this. I'm gonna grab my phone while this is playing, but let's go 3, 2, 1. Whoa. now I got to take that out. Jeff, shh. That's what the 3, 2, 1 is for. All right, 3, 2, 1.
One of the things that happened in the aftermath of the financial crisis was that many individuals looked at their own financial houses and wanted to get them put in order. What's your best advice for somebody looking at their personal financial picture and wanting to put their house in order?
Well, you never want to owe money you can't pay. I'm basically against debt. I mean, I think the average individual will live a lot happier life if they certainly ought to avoid credit card debt. I mean, there's no reason in the world to pay 18% for money. I can't make money paying 18% for money, so why should people up and down the street, do that? So avoid debt. If you have savings, and it's a good idea to have them if you can have them, just buy index funds and just buy them every month. And don't listen to financial advisors like me. Don't read financial pages. I mean, you don't need to do it. I mean, if you buy a farm, you don't get a weather forecast every morning. You don't get a quote on the farm every morning. You look at the farm itself. You say, is this farm going to produce so many bushels an acre of corn or soybeans, and is that satisfactory in relation to what I pay?
And that was Warren Buffett right there. And I got to tell you, I couldn't agree more, guys. One of the things that I know for sure is that people wake up in the financial world every single day and they monitor their accounts if they're close to retirement or in retirement, and they make decisions that day or that month based on what they can pay, based on the performance of the casino, which we call Wall Street. Welcome back to the Safe Money Radio Show. I'm Bruce Ford. I'm here on the Safe Money Radio Show with distinguished guests like these guys every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And we follow the Fourth Quarter Advisor Show. If you've not caught the Fourth Quarter Advisor Show, you need to catch that. There's an estate planning attorney. There is myself talking about the financial world. There is a mortgage specialist. And then we have a real estate broker who specializes in transitioning in your golden years, aging in place in your home, guys, or if you want to downsize, move, those sort of things. And so what we do on the Fourth Quarter Advisor Show is each week we rotate that. Each guy becomes a quarterback for the week and brings his own topic, his own guest, or whatever it is, to the show to help people that what we like to call are in the fourth quarter of their lives. Catch that show on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. So today, again, I'm joined, and by all means, go to the website anytime that you want some information from what we're talking about. I'll have your guys' information, by the way, posted to the website as well. But you can go to the website, FordFinancialInsurance.com, FordFinancialInsurance.com, and I'm with Jeff Bias and TJ Howsky. And we are talking about Avocare. We talked about the benefits, the health benefits. Now we're talking about the business side side of Avocare and what it's done for these two gentlemen. And what we're going to do in this last segment is we're going to tie this all together. Guys, let's talk about the business struggle. Let's talk about the struggles that we have as small business owners, right? Because that's exactly what you've done. You've left the corporate world and become a small business owner. And as I know all too well, there are struggles. So how about you, Jeff? I mean, and of course you're still working right now.
Yes, sir.
But
I
you're
do have a plan A that's working and a plan B, which is AvoCare. I think for me, to get into a business, people usually think thousands of dollars in that's not the same in AvoCare. And
you mean bringing money to the table?
Bringing money to the table.
That's a big misconception.
This is very small. This is probably less than a weekend night out with your family. Number two, the back office that we have, along with the business, they give you a microsite, and they do all the back office stuff for you. You know, when people think about, I got to have people to answer phones, I got to people have all this kind of other stuff that puts more work on you. No, this opportunity allows you just firsthand to be out talking to people and converting them to whatever they're looking for.
So it's a lot like a franchise. You know, these franchises, they come, when you buy a franchise, they come with, and I'm not talking about AvoCare, I'm just talking about any franchise in general. They come with a standard program, a standard plan for you, and then they give the support on the other side so you can concentrate on the business side, making it grow, and not the logistics, correct?
Yes, sir. And so for me, and you know, I think, look, one of the things about AvoCare is restoring the family, and we got an example right in our office or our studio, restoring the family. And I think one of the things I think about, we all have kids, and we talk about that, how much being with them is important. I just think about that mother at home that maybe needs that $212, and she can do that just about probably by working from home, maybe intermingling with some of her friends when she's taking the kids to and fro to school or doing her daily errands. You know what? We actually in AvoCare, we look forward to doing errands.
You know, it's interesting. You just hit something that we need to repeat quickly, because you hit on something, which is we do this every day. We tell people good things every day. I will tell somebody if I enjoyed whatever was in my hand that I just enjoyed. It was so good. I got it down at the Circle K.
Favorite movie, favorite restaurant?
You've just figured out a way how to get paid. That's the only difference. And if you don't think for a minute that when you're dropping the kids off at school or whatever it is, the groups that you're involved, that's not going on, it is. And so if somebody's questioning whether or not they should pick up on a side business like this, they need to realize, look at your network of people.
One of the things that people mention the most is time, and really, it's not as much time as you can think. I don't have time. This will create more time than you could ever dream of, but it's not as time consuming as you think. Like you said, it's your everyday walk of life, talking to these people that you see.
That fear that you talked about, the fear you talked about earlier, that the number one obstacle is fear. Telling yourself stuff like that, it's too much time. Oh, it's going to take too much money. You know, you can make yourself sick by telling yourself you're sick all the time. I mean, it's proven fact. And so that whole mental challenge has to be there to change. You know what? I want to do something different today. I want to find a way out of my current situation. If you don't start to think about that, you're going to be in the same situation next week. You know, right? So, okay, so what about you, TJ? What about some of this? Because you've made the transition all the way over, and your wife. Let's talk about the challenges first.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people would assume that the first challenge is the financial, and certainly if you make a decision to go all in early, you know, just from a time investment perspective, it's a little bit, I don't want to say more challenging, but it's just a different journey, you know, because you're building it from the ground up. But the way that Jeff is building his business, and a lot of families that we work with, and that's the key, families are building it the same way, and that's supplemental income that's generated and creating growth on the side that first pays off debt, and then when you have no debt, you know, your cost of living significantly changes. Now you have options. You know, that's really it's a graceful exit strategy, you know, to put yourself in that position. Now, equally, we've met people that have been on the other side where they've lost a job unexpectedly. I mean, I have a gentleman on our team. He lost his job over 20 years. I won't mention from the company, but he was subsidized. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, I got an option. Let's get to work, you know? Yeah. And so in our journey, I think our biggest struggle, honestly, was detoxing from the corporate think tank. And that was really the fear that was pumped into you that if you don't do this, you won't get this. And it was a perceived safety net, like, well, I get my check. And the reality is that I've only met people, and I try to, as I share this, that there's only one type of a job, and that's the one you haven't lost yet.
That's right.
You know, and
I
that's
agree with
that's
that.
really it. You know, so that was our biggest struggle, was just getting past the mindset, the lies we told ourselves, and allowing the words that create our world, you know, the other people spoke onto us. And once we had that, which came from support, you know, just coaching and mentoring, and that's what We Build Champions is all about. And Advocare is speaking life and helping build people up, you know, through growth. We just kind of caught it, you know, and honestly, our business isn't built by our efforts. It's built by the efforts of many, you know, so we're just here to help kind of like rudder the ship, you know, steer it along. But it's a business that's built by helping other people. And so the recognition really goes to the collective group, not, you know, to my wife and I.
Got it.
But it's a significant blessing. And I think that, you know, like, you know, you've been given a platform to make a difference here, you know, and Advocare is just our platform to make a difference. And I think that when you start to measure struggles, what you identify is that what you perceive as struggle is really not that big of an obstacle. You know, it's just a self-imposed limitation.
And a lot of things are never, Jeff, a problem until they're a problem. You know what I mean? We're so reactive in this country. That this gentleman that lost his job of 20 years, that was a reaction. When in reality, if you center yourself around people, good influences, and I say this and I say it with no bones about it, man. Get rid of the negative people in your life. I don't care if they're family members. They will suck the life out of you on a regular basis. Now, it's hard to get rid of your kids unless it's time for them to move out. But I'm just saying, you know, you've got to get that garbage out of your mind completely before you're ever going to change your habits. It's a whole mental thing. So Jeff, you know as well as I do that when people become self-employed, one of the challenges, and the reason why I want to talk about the challenges, is how do we now – first thing we're doing is eating what we kill. Okay, that's the first thing. We've got bills, we've got things we've got to do. Whatever we're making, we're spending to live, right? But there does become a point when we get to a certain threshold where we're a little bit more comfortable. We're saving money. Where it gets time for looking at retirement plans. Okay, as a small business owner, you also have challenges with healthcare, right? What do you think would be a good option? And this is a loaded question, but what do you think would be a good option for somebody who's starting to make money and wants to put it away for retirement?
Create a plan B. You just had Warren Buffett on earlier. He's a big advocate of direct sales industry. Some of your top financial gurus will talk about going from ordinary to extraordinary. And like we said, the time is you don't have to put as much time in it. Start on that plan B. Just put as much time as you have into it. If it's 10, 15, if it's only 5 hours, and do in due time, and you'll have options. We're talking to high school, early, just out of high school to senior citizens, and so we're talking to all walks of life. But one of the messages that I am speaking to the young people is that, look, you're going to spend all this money on this degree, and the amount of time that you would spend in that, getting that degree and tying up all that money for your student loans, by that amount of time you could have a viable, extraordinary business in Advocare. And then really the thing I think about is legacy.
Right.
As a more of a mature person, legacy. What do I want to leave for my family? What I want to do, to leave them, or just live a.
And how do we do it? How do we do it? And I gave you that loaded question on purpose, and I'm glad you listened to what Warren Buffett had to say, because one of the things that's happened, TJ, in my business is we've gotten away from thinking that Wall Street was the only way to make money. Okay, what about the safe money aspects? That's why it's called the Safe Money Show, by the way. I've never had a client lose a dime. I'm not interested in having a client lose a dime. Okay, the money that they put with us, we put in safe instruments where you can't lose principal. You may not gain 30 points if the market goes up 30 points, but guess what? You'll gain a certain threshold of that. Maybe it's 14%, whatever. But when the market completely crashes, you get zero. And you pay for that. You're basically reinsuring your retirement. So something I want you to think about quickly, and I know we're up against running out of time here, is the indexing that he talked about has evolved into universal life, index universal life insurance. Life insurance is one of the only tax-free instruments out there. If you die, you can typically pass on the life insurance proceeds tax-free. So the insurance companies have met the financial industry and created something we call fin insurance, right? And what happens is you use the tax-free nature of the life insurance policy, comes along with a death benefit, but you pack as much money into this policy as you can and keep it a life insurance policy, but you structure it so that it's for future income for retirement. And what's going on in the middle while you're putting your money into the policy, you have the death benefit in case something happens to you. But if you reach retirement and you decide you want to take retirement income, you can take the money out. It has to be structured properly. You take the money out via loan. It's never reportable to the IRS and never has to be. And so a lot of these policies are averaging 7 to 9% consistently over periods of time. 10, 15, 20 years. So imagine growing your money inside of a policy that has a death benefit in case something happens to you. A lot of these have riders in case you become terminally ill, so on and so forth. But imagine making 7 to 9% on your money. You can never get less than zero. You never lose principal, right? So then when you get to retirement and you start to borrow against that policy, okay, it comes back to you tax-free. You would have to make, we'd have to compare. You'd have to make so much more money to pull out and to get the same proceeds after tax. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I've developed a lot of these for small business owners and said, look, this covers the life insurance that you need currently, maybe for your business, but we're designing this for future income. And I'll give you a quick example. 28-year-old woman, $300 a month till age 65. Okay, $300 a month till age 65. Age 66, the first tax-free distribution back was $86,000, and that was through age 100.
That's incredible.
Do the math compared to the market. Mm-hmm. And so it's so powerful. The problem is it's not out there like it should be. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're in a small business and you're saving or you want to save, you need to look at other things other than the market. What happens if your business goes down and you're linked to the market and the market crashes at the same time? Mm-hmm. There's just you're so subject, and we have to change our way of thinking to understand there's other financial instruments out there. And of course, it looks like I've dominated the time here at the end, guys, and I apologize for that. But what I will thank you for is coming in today. I really appreciate it, and I would like to have you back again.
That'd be great.
You know, I'll make you a deal. We'll do a whole nother show on this, but you have to bring Andy in here.
Deal. I'll bring Andy and I'll bring Larry. And let me just say to anybody listening, thanks so much. And I really, it's on my heart to just tell you, you know, I think with Bruce and what he's offering and Advocare, and the first step is just being okay with asking for help. You don't know what you don't know. And unless you pick up the phone about your money, it's going to go in somebody's pocket, you know, and there's just people out there like Bruce and like ourselves that are willing to help you. So just ask for help. It's don't let pride get in your way.
The biggest potential lies in your greatest fear.
That's right. And I envy you guys. Listen, fitnessneighbor@gmail.com. Fitnessneighbor@gmail.com is how you can reach these guys. Or if you just want to call Jeff because you like his personality, you can reach him at 317-339-0134. Write this down now, 317-339-0134. And, of course, if you're interested in carrying a conversation with TJ, you can call him. He'll answer the phone. It's amazing. 317-220-7670. 317-220-7670. Thank you for joining the Safe Money Radio Show on Radio Mom. I'm Bruce Ford, and I'll be back next week. You don't want to miss what's coming up next week, guys. You have any idea?
Safe Money Radio?
It's a complete surprise.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hey, we'll have you back again. Hey, FordFinancialInsurance.com is where you can find me. Until next week, I hope and pray that you're safe and that you remember that all things are great through Christ. And that's my opinion. I don't know. I need to play some of this back because I don't know. Hey, there he is.
Hey, buddy.
I'll have to adjust some of the levels. I'm sorry. See how quick an hour goes by, man?
It was great.
Oh, cool. You think we could laminate these and stick it somewhere? Let me introduce you to these guys. Rusty, this is Jeff Weiss. Did you meet him already? Okay.
Hey, buddy. How you doing, man? Pretty good.
And TJ Howsky. This is Rusty. He works with the radio station and does a lot more than he gets credit for. Let me tell you that. We did get the camera back up and running. Matter of fact, I just had it recording, and so my challenge here now is to stop the